VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. This is our first correspondence from this group since the debacle, the faceplant, the thud against the Rams. I don't think anybody on this panel, or probably you at home on your couch on your phone, thought that they would really look that inept. So that's why it's so heartbreaking. I'm here with Josh Fry, my typical Wednesday guest, and I've also got a newcomer, Joel Williams. Joel, kind of a shitty day to join this show, all things considered, but we are glad to have you. How are you, man?
Okay, things could have been better back on Monday, but I'm glad I'm at least on the program.
Yeah, the perk is now off-season shows are pretty cool because we get to speculate for 8 months how the team will look. The build up to free agency is fantastic. Josh can tell you all about the draft. But first, Joel, I want to know about you. Give us a brief biography, how you became a Vikings fan and all that, and then we'll jump into some off-season priorities for the purple team.
Okay, so so I'm from Rochester, New York. I've been a Vikings fan since I was a child. What what helped me become a Vikings fan is having family and relatives out in Minnesota.
Okay.
Uh, and, my mom's originally from Rochester, Minnesota. Uh, and so my family actually either still lives between Rochester and the Twin Cities, but my relatives were really what inspired me to become a Vikings fan. They gave me all sorts of Minnesota-based merchandise when I was growing up, and when I decided to start watching football when I was a child, the Vikings were the first team I knew about.
Yeah.
So, in short, that was for much what made it easy for me to uh, cheer them on, and it was around the time of when we saw Culpepper and Moss.
Okay. Yeah, that would
Good
have
time
been
to hop on.
yeah, it would have been a fun time because that was an offensive era, and that's usually what draws youngsters to the sport, like Steph Curry in the NBA and all of the three-point shooting. All right, Joel, we'll get back to you in just a second to start going through offseason priorities. Josh, I need to hear from you. Do you want to give us you let in with it before the show, what you were going to save it, a little 30-second, 60-second speech about your melancholy?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I woke up Monday morning and I just had a feeling like this was going to end up being like the Giants game in 2022, or even like maybe closer would be that week one game in 2023 against the Buccaneers, where
Hmm.
it just kind of felt like all the wind got taken out of the sails. And I don't know. Right from the beginning with that 30-yard pass from Stafford. I think it was to Higbee, right? Right at the beginning. I just felt like this was not going to be the Vikings day, and it just continued to not be the Vikings day. Anyway, it was a sucky loss, but at the end of the day, I don't think we can be too upset about how this season transpired, considering we were with Sam Darnold, all the stuff that happened during the last offseason, all the roster turnover, the Kyrie Jackson death, just everything that was going against this team heading into 2024. And to have a 14-3 season and at least be competitive, I think we can chalk that up as a win, despite how brutal the past couple weeks have been in terms of game results.
We can, if you look at the entire product for the last, I guess, year now, because I don't know what Joel thought, but I know on this show, Josh and I were saying 7-10, 8-9, because surprise, surprise, we didn't trust Sam Darnold. But then they showed up in September within a month. We're like, geez, these guys are Super Bowl contenders. Then they had a little downturn, two losses, surprise, surprise, to the Lions and Rams. But then they won nine straight. So they went from what we thought was a 7-10 team to a 14-win team when we were saying, why not us? And then they look like a 3-win team in the playoff game. So, I mean, they hurt themselves by being too good and getting our hopes too high. But such is life. The offseason is here. There's no way around that. I think the Vikings will probably have an end of season press conference tomorrow. I haven't heard anything about it today. But we're going to get out in front ahead of them. I have a list. I'll probably fill in the cracks, and I expect you guys to double up on off-season priorities because it would be a little weird if we all had separate ones. Joel, the guest of the hour, I'm going to start with you. You can start anywhere on your list. It doesn't matter how important it is, if it's top, bottom of your list. What is one of the Vikings' main off-season priorities?
I would have to say, trying to actually find. I would probably say trying to find that the uh, a running back, considering the fact that both both of who we have, Aaron Jones. Um, Aaron Jones, he's going to be a free agent. Cam Akers, he's going to be a free agent. Uh, we're going to have to probably sign one of them. unlikely we'll probably get one in the draft until later rounds. So I feel like that's gonna be one of those priority. I wouldn't say that's the top priority, but it is something that we got to actually focus on.
Yeah, the Vikings rushing offense per DVOA, a reliable statistic, 2022 ranked 27th, 2023 ranked 27th, this year ranked 20th. You can see the Aaron Jones effect a little bit, but it cooled off. It was great for the first 5 weeks, and I think up until the Jets game, that's when everything kind of got a little mundane in terms of running football. Left up to you, Joel. Would you re-sign Aaron Jones? Go look for somebody like Javonte Williams, who's going to be a free agent, or draft one with the compensatory pick they're going to get from Kirk? What would you do, sir?
Now I now Aaron Jones might still cost quite a bit, but I wouldn't mind if they actually brought him back if they wanted to, but at the same time I would understand if they decide to part ways. I wouldn't mind if they got a running back with the compensatory pick, but I feel like then we'd have to still try to at least keep Cam Akers if possible, considering he is a cheaper option.
Yeah, maybe we don't even have to trade for Cam Akers this year. Maybe we can just sign him outright. This is a very deep running back class. I'm sure Josh knows all about that. A little disappointed that both Penn State guys are going back. I'm sitting there watching them these past 3 weeks saying, hey, that's a Viking. Josh A, was running back on your list?
Running back was on my list.
Okay, speak on it.
Yeah, it was number 5 on my list in terms of ranking the priorities, but I ultimately think that it's time to draft a running back. I don't think we should re-sign Aaron Jones. He just turned 30. He looked absolutely banged up down the stretch of the season. The Viking, we saw it. Like, the red zone rushing game was absolutely nothing against Detroit. They couldn't consistently run the ball against LA. And you look at all these playoff teams, they have a bruiser at the running back position. At least a lot of them do, between Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, all these guys. They have absolute bruisers that make tacklers feel them when they go down to the ground. And I think it's time for the Vikings to actually draft a guy to be that type of running back in their backfield. And honestly, I think day 2 is going to be absolute prime for the pickings at the running back position. So I would not mind using that compensatory pick on one at all. Honestly, the guy that I have an eye on, obviously Ashton Genty's going to be at the top. He's probably going round 1 though.
Cowboys not getting past Dallas.
Yeah, exactly. So honestly, I think Cam Scadbo out of Arizona State is a guy to keep an eye on because he's I think he's like 6 foot 220, 215, something like that. And if you watch the college football playoff against Texas, he was the reason that Arizona State was still in that game down the stretch. He's an absolute baller. He can catch the ball. He can run between the tackles. He can do pretty much everything you want out of a running back. And I think it's time to get a young guy in there. I think he's turning 21 this spring, or maybe he already turned 21. But yeah, I think it's time to draft a running back. So get a young guy in there.
You think he could handle the workload as the Vikings RB1?
I've given it to him. Yeah.
Wow.
I think he's up there. Yeah.
Yannick and Eckhart and I were watching that game together and talking about, I think a lot of it's because he's white. We're like, is he really going to be translate to RB1? Like, that's just how, that's my long-standing thing with white running backs is like, is it real? So I wanted to hear it from your lips, and I'm glad that I hear it. All right, so we both got running back out of the way. Josh, I'm going to stick with you, and then we'll pivot back to Joel. What is a number 4 on your list of off-season priorities?
Number 4, you could argue that this should be more important, potentially, but I'm going with the defensive tackle position.
Okay.
I just think that after 2 years of Brian Flores and them not really paying much attention to this position, and they still have great defenses, I think it's just not ultimately a huge priority this offseason. But I do think that it should be a priority to at least get some sort of run-stopping presence in the middle of that defensive line because we watched it against Detroit and LA. They could not stop the run in either one of those games. And Kyren Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs just continuously were falling forward for extra yards, and it was continuously pissing me off. But I think it's time to get an actual run-stopping nose tackle in that defensive line. Whether it's free agency, it's going to be a little bit more of a slim pickings this year compared to last season. But the draft, there's going to be some guys out there as well. So I think that it's time to eventually try to find somebody in terms of a run stopper in the offensive line instead of just continuously finding these little Band-Aid solutions that we can put over the top of it.
So are you talking about a big chunky nose tackle next to Harrison Phillips? Because usually those guys can be got in the mid rounds. If you're talking about a 3-tech pass rushing savant, those guys will usually nibble at the first and ultimately get to the second.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about like a pass rusher, three tech type of
Okay.
guy at this point, considering how much depth that the Vikings have at other positions in
Yeah.
terms of pass rushers. So I just want somebody beefy in the middle
Yeah.
of that defensive line. Like you said, those guys can be definitely found rounds 3, 4, 5 in the draft, and they can be turned into starters down the stretch too. So
So I agree. I'm just a little worrisome that they would do that because wouldn't have Flores already found that guy within 2 years? Like it's one of the sweetest things about Vikings football is they have a really good run defense usually with no
mhm.
nose tackle. Like no semblance of a nose tackle with Kairos Tonga leaving during the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, he might have. Maybe it's Taki Tayahani at this point.
Yeah.
He just got injured down the stretch of the season, so maybe they do have
Okay.
their solution already in house. But I just want to see by the time August rolls around, I want them to see and have a solution
Yeah.
at that spot finally, instead of just again putting these band-aid solutions over the top of all these problems.
Joel, was defensive tackle on your list? And if not, what is your next one?
It was actually on
Sweet.
amongst my
Nice.
yeah. Yeah, go figure, right?
And do you
Uh
want
the,
the nose? You want the nose, the big guy, or do you want a pass rusher like the ones that are usually coveted at near the top of the draft?
I would probably agree with the nose tackle. I mean, even though some of the best ones available are well, but it is still a huge need to have right next to Harrison Phillips. So the and I mean I have been looking at seeing who some of the top nose tackles are, and I think what was it, BJ Hill?
Hmm.
Right? He's
Hmm.
from yeah he's one to consider. I would have to say, but at the same time we could always try to look further on in the draft if we don't like what we see uh, in the early round. So.
Yeah, that's the perk of a nose tackle is almost always you can find one not in the first round. I don't know why that is, but it's kind of like off-ball linebackers. Like, should you really spend the first round or one of those? I just because I'm convinced that Brian Flores doesn't need a nose tackle. I want the three tech guy once and for all. They haven't had one since Kevin Williams, and I've been asking for it every offseason, even before I started the show or this writing career about the Vikings. They never listen. We'll see if they do. All right, Joel, back to you. Your next off-season priority. I think we got three left from you. What do you got?
So I will say, uh, who's going to be who's going to be, uh, backing up, JJ?
Okay.
So,
That's fair.
uh, yeah, considering, I mean, uh, Darnold, we could stick with Darnold, but he may be expensive to keep around even under the franchise tag. So, we could go with Jones, but I mean, is there any other quarterback, to my knowledge, that we even have under contract other than JJ next year?
No.
Nope.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to make sure we actually find some good backup options just in case.
So
Um,
a QB2 probably pricing out of or Darnold is priced out, even though it doesn't feel like it today. They have a seamless transition to Daniel Jones if they want it. He can probably be the exact same arrangement with Darnold that says, "Hey, 10 million bucks, you can compete this summer. We'll see how it goes." So the Darnold decision and QB2, I think that can kind of be lumped into one. Did you have that, Josh?
I did not, but I'll throw an option out there. How about Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, here we go. I knew the moment that I saw that, was it Schefter tweet 2 weeks ago that they're probably going to
Yeah.
part ways. I'm like, oh boy, let's get prepared. Do you really think that could happen, Josh?
No, absolutely not. I think he's
No.
gonna.
yeah.
I think he's gonna get paid somewhere, but probably not going to get. He's not going to get the same contract that he got with Atlanta, but he's not going to sign somewhere on a minimum. I
Well,
don't think he's
it
that walked up
makes
yet.
it makes too much sense for him to go to Cleveland because he's basically in that
Oh yeah.
Russell Wilson situation if they indeed cut him, where we already know you got your money, pal. Don't try to fool us. And the Watson thing has gone completely belly up. I don't even know if he'll play football again. And then they can probably draft Ward or Sanders if that's their choosing, and then boom, if you want to bridge Kirk at cheap for 5 weeks or whatever it is, I think that one it's Stefanski, the angle there.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't think that I'm that concerned about it after seeing Sam Darnold do it with Nick Mullins and Daniel Jones as his backups. We're
Hmm.
like, maybe it's different with JJ McCarthy since it's going to be his first actual season starting as an NFL quarterback. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like QB2 at this point. Just give me somebody who in a pinch can can throw the ball and look competent out there.
Yeah.
It's not a position that I'm overly concerned about heading into 2025 in terms of development for JJ McCarthy or something. I
Yeah.
think that's all Kevin O'Connell, and he's got that taken care of.
One thing I'm worried about, and this is my own selfish thing, I do not want to go through June, July, and August debates and competitions about who the quarterback is. I spare me of that. I really don't want that. For the psyche of the quarterback, even though it's probably decent for him to have competition. I don't want to sit there and have fans be pro Jones and pro McCarthy. It's going to really get on my nerves. It's not really an analytical take. It's my nerves are going to fly. All right, Josh, you're up for the next offseason priority.
Number 3 for me, I'm going to go with the interior offensive line. I think it reared its ugly head again in Week 18 and in that wild card game with just abysmal performances all around. I just don't understand why well, I get it. Like it was cheap and they were in a little bit of a pinch this offseason. But I mean, if we run into 2025 with Blake Brandel and Garrett Bradbury, Dalton Reisner as a 3 on the interior, I fear for JJ McCarthy's meniscus because it's just going to happen again. He's going to take so many sacks. He's going to end up getting hurt again. And I just hope that they find somebody, whether it's free agency like a Trey Smith and go out and get the big guy, or just somebody in the draft, whether it's first round or maybe day 2. I just want them to go find somebody that's a little bit better, not only as a pass protector, but just run blocking, because I think that's also a big reason why the Vikings rushing offense just hasn't been as good. They just don't have the guys, the chops out there to really run block for these guys. And Garrett Bradbury's about to turn 30. I don't think that there's a big turnaround coming in his career anytime soon. There's nothing huge happening over the horizon for him. Dalton Reisner, we pretty much know what he is. He's a pass blocking guy. Doesn't really do much in terms of run blocking. Blake Brandel, I think he's the one guy that I'd be like, let's give this guy another chance and see what he can really do as year 2 of a starter. But otherwise, I just hope that they go and get at least a guard, maybe a guard and a center this offseason and really flip this offensive line a little bit.
A familiar conversation, like fans chatting about interior offensive line. When we thought we had it licked, we thought we were doing pretty well. I think now is the time to transition into whether or not we can get into the upper echelon, the upper crust of interior line pass protection and run blocking. Right now, I think because of the end of the Zimmer era, we're like, just get us to 14 or get us to 16th best. And the offensive line has surpassed that. But the fine tuning and tweaking needs to come in the interior. And if you listen to Kevin O'Connell after the loss at the Rams, that's what he said. He said that's going to be like, per his lips, it sounded like the top priority. So I think this one will be fixed, especially when you have $70 million because dead cap money from Kirk Cousins, Danielle Hunter is gone. So that is the type of gift that you have to go improve there. Joel, did you have interior offensive line on your list?
I actually did.
Yep. All right.
There we go.
No surprise. The game pretty much, this latest game pretty much showed it why it's important that we actually focus. And I do agree with trying to get after Trey Smith. That I've read around that he's amongst the top free agents right now. So it would be kind of foolish for us not to go after if that's going to be our top priority. And we got to also look to see who, in the draft as well, considering everything. And we also got, not only just in the guard position, but we also have to find who's going to replace Bradbury because Bradbury's not coming back. So.
Yeah, it'd be end of an era for Bradbury. Let's see, about 6 seasons long now, and it feels like this is probably the divorce point. If they waive him, cut him, it's not a big penalty. And it would be really, really weird if O'Connell came out and said we need to improve the interior pocket, and then boom, Garrett Bradbury's back. That would be one of the weirdest things about the offseason. All right, back to you, Joel. We're winding down. What is your second to last priority for these Vikings in this offseason?
So I would probably say, corner would be. I've seen the fact that we're going to be losing a lot, and Metellus is probably the best one we're going to get that we're actually still going to keep around. So, and there's plenty of great free agents, but I think the fact is, I think if there's any position we got to focus on in the draft, I would say that's number one.
Yeah, I wrote an article for VikingsTerritory.com yesterday, and I called that the most pressing need, the roster need, anyhow, because right now, if the season started tomorrow, it would be Dwight McLaughlin, Mekhi Blackman, and Najee Thompson. That's it. Now, a lot of this pain can be eased by re-signing Pro Bowler Byron Murphy, whose price went up because of the Pro Bowl. But even then, I wouldn't be confident with Byron Murphy, Mekhi Blackman, and Dwight McLaughlin. I don't think anybody would in today's NFL, anyhow. So they either need to target one of Josh's guys, Benjamin Morrison, he mentioned about a month ago. Let's
Yep.
see, DJ Reed is a free agent, Charvarius Ward, decent free agent. So there are
Yep.
options. I'm going to take a big fat wild guess that corner was on your list, Josh.
Yeah, it was. And a version of it, number two actually for me was just re-signing Cameron Bynum and
Okay.
Byron Murphy this offseason.
Yeah.
I don't think you can afford to lose either one of those guys on this in this defensive secondary, considering how many other guys that are entering free agency that very well could just walk up and leave. Like Stephon Gilmore could retire, Shaquille Griffin, who knows what's going to happen with him, Harrison Smith, he could retire. But yeah, those two guys have been absolutely fantastic, and they've really not only held down in the defensive secondary, but they feel like the culture builders on that defense at this point is too as well. Like Cameron Bynum just leading all the turnover dances in the end zone with his other guys. So I hope that they keep them around, not only just for talent wise, but just to keep the culture going, because I think that's just as important in a lot of these NFL locker rooms at this point.
Josh, per an allocation of resources, if it was left up to you, General Manager Fry, would you sign DJ Reed or draft Benjamin Morrison if he's there at 24? Or would you say, F it, we're doing both?
I'd probably draft Benjamin Morrison, just
Okay.
because I really hope that they utilize a lot of this cap space this offseason to like bring back these guys, but also go out and get a really quality guard, to shore
Okay.
up that offensive line.
Is
That would be
Yeah.
my yeah.
is Chevelle Ward one of your guys yet, or did we just casually talk about him?
We casually talked about it. I'll be honest, I haven't really dug deep into cornerbacks at this point
Okay.
in the offseason yet, but that's going to be one of my top priorities over the next couple weeks, because I know this show, and we'll be talking draft a
Yep.
lot. But yeah, I think Ravel, he's definitely a solid option as well. Hopefully he bounces back from the injury that he got early on in the season too. But yeah, I wouldn't be upset about either one of those options.
When we get there to that docket, that episode, Josh accurately predicted that Quinion Mitchell, that was his guy at cornerback. He circled them and said, God, I hope he gets to the Vikings. And voila, he is the best cornerback, rookie cornerback in the sport, and probably would win Rookie of the Year if there was no Jared Verse. It might even still win it. We shall see. All right, so let's see. We are to. Did you have corner? Or wait, what are we? Are we to Joel's?
Yeah.
Joel again. Yep.
Joel, what is your top priority? I think this is the end of your list. What do you got?
Okay. So I I mean, I guess safety I could have put with the corner as well, but but I'm thinking that one of the priorities could be we're seeing the end of the contract uh, with O'Connell as well as Kwesi. So re-signing either of those two to a longer deal would actually be a smart idea, especially O'Connell. We've seen what he can do. Well, not so well in the postseason, but regular season he's won 2/3 of the games, and it's of his games, and it's not easy to do that in the league. So and he's turned around. He's made some great progress with the quarterbacks. He's shown that a lot of players trust him, and they want him around. But I mean, this last two games weren't really showing up what he does well as coach, and I think obviously during the offseason he's going to definitely look at what he did wrong and try to correct that.
Yep, I think most lists, if they like-minded lists, would be headlined by extending Kevin O'Connell. Is that what you got, Josh?
Yeah, that's the top of my list, baby. We can't let this guy go into a lame duck year in 2020.
There's no way he will either. So it's more of a formality, but we have to have it at the top of the list.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to happen, but it absolutely needs to happen. The dude deserves it. He's shown what he can do with quarterbacks over the past few years, and just the culture that he's built in Minnesota again. I think that's just as important as any talent that he can coach out on the field. So I'm expecting that this gets done relatively soon, and it should be a hefty one to keep him in Minnesota for multiple years down the road.
Yeah, I believe O'Connell will be this team's coach indefinitely, so long as this quarterback whisper reputation continues, because what else do you need? We'll have a revolving door on defense, but that's what drives the sport.
And I'm just gonna say this, like I don't understand how over the past 2 weeks people have gone from like Kevin O'Connell's great to like let's let him walk into a lame duck year or just flat out fire the guy.
Take away the play calling. That's my favorite.
Yeah, exactly. Like, like sure you want some justice for what's happened to your Vikings over the past couple weeks, but like looking around the league, what other better options are there at the head coaching spot for the Minnesota Vikings right now?
Yeah, well, there's exactly zero.
Yeah.
You can always like there's all kinds of frustration that seeps out of two nauseating losses. Like even if it's from a national viewpoint, some of that trade Jefferson shit started again. There was the O'Connell never ending by certain voices like strip the play calling away. And I always say, well, what the hell is he gonna do then? Just hang out and be like this big guy for vibes?
Maybe.
Yeah. That's not how it works. He'd probably resign if you told him to stop calling plays. All right. I had a list that went about 10 or 11 deep, just in case we forgot anything. I have replacing Harrison Smith if applicable, because he sure as hell sounded like a guy who was going to retire. The first time I've ever seen him like that. So I'm going to guess he does hang it up, although I'm going to speak this bold prediction into existence that he comes back if Brian Flores stays. That is my other one, finding a replacement defensive coordinator if applicable. I honestly think that Flores will strike out and not get a head coaching job, and this will be moot. However, if they do need to replace them, you've got, because of the Vikings' tentacles, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell, you have Brandon Staley. He was the defensive coordinator for the Rams during their Super Bowl. You have Robert Salah, who came up with Kwesi Adofo-Mensah at San Francisco. And then, wouldn't you know it, Jared Mayo, who's looking for a job, was part of the rookie class with Kevin O'Connell. So all of these tentacles will help if Flores has to leave, and that probably will be the way for it, like next offseason if we're talking about Flores. And then finally, the Captain Obvious for me, and I think I stated at the beginning of the show, it is fully grooming JJ McCarthy and his injury recovery to be the quarterback, not some big controversy about who's going to start or, hey, we're bringing Darnold back on the franchise tag. I don't want any of that shit. My biggest grievance with Sam Darnold right now is this. I understand he wasn't cut out for the bright lights of the postseason. What I know will happen if we re-sign him, he's going to look like a machine in the training camp, in preseason, September, October, November, December especially, and we would have to, in theory, wait a full year and a playoff game to figure out, is he going to do it again? We don't have time for that shit. We've got a quarterback, JJ McCarthy, who now has 4 years. We have 4 years to get this right. Everything that August day when he tore his meniscus, everything was delayed 1 year. So now other teams get 5 years to get this right when they draft a quarterback. Well, we only get 4 because ours tore his meniscus, and we have to start this era now, because if we keep pushing it off for some Daniel Jones bullshit or another year of Darnold, we're going to have 3 years with hopefully McCarthy. Otherwise, we're going to have to hope that we're like the Packers and boom, this guy's ready by year 3 or 4 and he's that patient. I just don't see that happening. So I want as soon as they are ready for them to tell us JJ McCarthy is our starter, we will explore Daniel Jones as a backup. I want that told to me. I don't want to get to minicamp and be like, who's going to be the starter, baby? I don't want any of that. So that is my soapbox speech. Joel, I will give you the last word. You got any bold Vikings takes to get off your chest? Any parting comments for your first appearance on VikesNow?
Well, I mean, this wasn't my first appearance. I mean, there was back last in May, but
oh, my bad.
No problem. But I mean, for the most part, I definitely do agree with what's been said. I don't think there's anything too bold, but I don't know for sure if JJ is going to be ready for week 1, and so we got to make sure we still have that. I still think he's going to be started day 1, previous to what I was thinking 2 weeks ago considering how Darnold was doing. But after seeing how things are, we got pretty much turn the page, and if he's ready, then obviously O'Connell will know and peg him in as the starter. Otherwise, it's whoever we have, whether it be if we still have Darnold or if we still have Jones. then it could be one of them. But I don't see that happening. I see it being McCarthy day one.
Yeah, I think they had a plan. They're going to stick to it. And I don't even know if McCarthy or if Darnold and the Vikings would have won last week, if they would have deviated from that plan. We don't have to think about that anymore. But this number one with the bullet, this show is going to be pro McCarthy, and it won't stop pretty much ever until the guy proves us otherwise. Yeah, all right. We'll have you back, Joel. Sorry, but I forgot you're on one of those fan shows. My bad. Those are coming back too on every Friday. Apologies there. Josh, any parting words?
No, I'm kind of just with you. JJ McCarthy is my guy moving forward too, and like you said, I just want this Kevin O'Connell extension to be done, so I don't have to think about it anymore. It's going to get done, but just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Just get it out of the way as soon as possible. What's the point in waiting at this point? So that'd be my thing.
One little sweet twist is we got the Christian Darrisaw extension out of the way. Right now would have been prime time to start thinking about how many hundreds of millions he was going to get. That's done. So that's one less priority. All right, gentlemen, you have a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll talk to you guys soon, okay?
Sounds good.
Thanks, Joel. Take it easy.
You too.